When we hear the name Strait of Hormuz, many immediately think of oil tankers and trade routes. But to understand the real impact of its closure, we must go beyond the surface. This narrow waterway is more than just a strategic channel. It's a powerful reminder of how deeply connected our world truly is. A single action in one region sends ripples across continents. That's not just geography, that's humanity. We rely on each other in ways we rarely stop to acknowledge. Until something breaks, until something closes. The shutting down of this passage is not merely a political move. It speaks volumes about the fragile threads that hold our global stability together. It forces us to ask, what is power? If not handled with care, what is control if it causes others to lose theirs? The strait becomes a symbol of our shared vulnerability. When something so small on the map becomes so large in consequence, it teaches us that even the tiniest channel can carry the weight of the world. And yet, isn't it strange how we often ignore the very things that keep our lives flowing? We forget the value of peace when there's peace. We forget the strength of unity until it begins to fall apart. So when this strait was shut, it wasn't just ships that stopped. It was our illusion of certainty. It reminded us that true strength does not lie in the ability to disrupt, but in the courage to preserve, to connect, and to protect the lifelines that sustain not only economies but human lives. Let this disruption serve as a call to awareness, not just in policies or headlines, but deep within us. A reminder that the world flows forward only when we choose to move together. Panic is not born from the event itself, but from the quiet truths it uncovers. The moment the Strait of Hormuz was shut, the world didn't just react to the blockade. It reacted to the fear it revealed. A fear that we are far more dependent, far more unprepared, and far more fragile than we pretend to be. In a matter of hours, oil prices soared, markets trembled, and world leaders scrambled for statements. But beneath the economic tremors lies something deeper. The undeniable realization that our global systems are delicately balanced on assumptions of peace and access. We build our lives on what we believe to be permanent: the supply chains, the open seas, the steady flow of resources. And in doing so, we forget how quickly certainty can vanish. That panic, that unsettling surge of fear across borders, is a sign that we've placed our faith in structures, not values. That we've built towers of progress on foundations that have never been tested by real storms. But here's the truth: no headline will tell you fear is not weakness. Fear is a teacher. It shows us where the cracks are. It reveals the places we must strengthen, not just in policy, but in principle. The panic that spread across the world wasn't just about oil. It was about exposure. It was about the sudden clarity that one decision, one closure, one moment of aggression can make the world pause and question everything it thought was stable. And maybe that pause was necessary. Maybe in the silence of suspended trade and halted movement, the world was given a moment to reflect, not just on what was lost, but on what must be rebuilt with deeper wisdom and shared courage. Because panic ends where responsibility begins. To shut down a passage like the Strait of Hormuz is not simply an act of strategy. It's a declaration. It tells the world, power still believes it must be proven through disruption. But real power, the kind that changes lives and shapes futures, is not about how loudly one can shake the world. It's about how responsibly one holds it. Money. When decisions are made that send tremors across nations, they must be made with a heart wide enough to hold the weight of consequence. Unfortunately, too often, strength is mistaken for dominance, and control is used not to protect, but to provoke. In moments like this, we see the truth about leadership. It's easy to command fear, but it takes courage to choose restraint. To those who hold the power to open or close the flow of the world, this is your reminder. Your reach touches more than borders. It touches lives. The shutting of a strait might seem like a political message, but the message heard around the world is different. It says, we can disrupt, but the question echoes louder. Can we heal what we disrupt? The world watches. But more importantly, it feels the unease of people whose stability depends on forces beyond their control. It feels the tension between nations who once sought collaboration, but now prepare for conflict. And amidst this, responsibility is no longer optional. It is essential. Because true power doesn't shout. It protects. It listens. It understands the invisible threads that connect people across oceans and makes decisions with the humility that comes from knowing the cost of every consequence. When the world trembles at the action of a few, we must ask not just what was done, but why, and at what human price. And we must dare to do better. In times of global disruption, the loudest voices are often those of analysts, leaders, and economists. We hear numbers, barrels, dollars, losses. We hear forecasts of crisis and charts of falling markets. But what we rarely hear, and what we must never forget, is the quiet grief of the people. The shutting of the Strait of Hormuz triggered global panic, yes. But beyond the headlines are the unseen hearts. Families whose livelihoods depend on trade. Workers whose future becomes uncertain. And children who grow up beneath skies clouded by fear and unrest. The media zooms in on oil prices, but fails to capture the mother who wonders how she'll afford food if costs keep rising. It doesn't show the fisherman who can no longer sail freely, or the student whose dreams begin to feel like distant luxuries. We become so fixated on strategy and geopolitics that we forget the most basic truth. Behind every panic are people. Behind every closure is a community that feels the weight of a decision they had no part in making. And isn't that the tragedy? That power can act, and the powerless must adjust. That a single move at the top can ripple down into the daily lives of millions. This is where our focus must return, not just to the corridors of diplomacy, but to the doorsteps of ordinary homes. Because when humanity gets lost in the noise, the world loses its soul. Let this moment be more than a political turning point. Let it be a human one. Let us begin to see each crisis not through the lens of power, but through the eyes of the people. That shift in perspective is what transforms fear into compassion and policy into purpose. The world doesn't just need solutions. It needs heart. Every crisis carries within it a question, far more powerful than panic. What will we do with this moment? The closing of the Strait of Hormuz did more than disrupt oil shipments or rattle markets. It offered the world a mirror to examine not just our dependence on one narrow route, but our deeper reliance on systems we never dared to question. For too long, we've moved forward assuming that convenience is a right, that global flow is unshakable, and that the structures we've built will always hold. But when one closure sends tremors around the globe, it should wake us up, not only to the fragility of our systems, but to the opportunity hidden inside that fragility. Moments like these are uncomfortable, but necessary. They ask us to reflect. Why do we remain so vulnerable to a single decision? Why have we allowed the world's heartbeat to be dictated by control instead of cooperation? In the silence that follows chaos, we can either rush back to old patterns, or we can pause, just long enough to learn. This is the time to rethink our energy models, to invest not only in resources, but in resilience. It's a chance to build systems that don't collapse at the sign of tension, and policies that prioritize stability over dominance. Most of all, it's a call to remember that peace isn't passive. It's something we must actively build, especially when fear tempts us to turn inward. Let us not waste this crisis by seeking only to recover. Let us rise from it with greater wisdom. Because when the world is shaken, it's not just an invitation to survive, it's a challenge to evolve. And those who dare to reflect will be the ones strong enough to lead us forward. Panic is loud. It spreads quickly, fueled by fear, suspicion, and uncertainty. But in that noise lies a powerful choice: to let the moment divide us, or to let it refine us. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz may have sparked a wave of unrest, but it can also mark the beginning of a deeper awakening. Not every disruption has to lead to destruction. Sometimes it can lead to direction. This is a chance for the world to stop reacting and start responding. With clarity, with compassion, and with conviction. It is easy, in moments like these, to assign blame and draw lines, to retreat into nationalism, to protect only our own. But if this crisis has shown us anything, it's that no nation stands alone. What affects one ripples through all. That's not weakness, it's truth. And within that truth lies our greatest strength: unity. Let this be the turning point, where panic doesn't feed conflict, but fosters cooperation. Where instead of threats, we choose dialogue. Instead of retaliation, we choose understanding. It begins with leadership that dares to listen before it acts. With voices that speak not just to protect interests, but to uplift people. It begins with every citizen who chooses hope over hysteria, reason over reaction. Because if we allow every crisis to harden us, we lose the very humanity we're trying to defend. Let this moment inspire more than economic recovery. Let it inspire moral clarity. We cannot control every action in the world, but we can choose our response. And in doing so, we can turn global panic into global purpose. The world may be shaken, but it is not broken. And when we rise, let it be with gentler hands, stronger hearts, and a renewed belief that unity is the only way forward.